Hello, good evening. Here from the Philippines. Life itself throws many different things at us during its long period of time. Many of us, of course, have maybe long forgotten the time when a new child is born into the family and you start to learn each moment, each day, a different thing about your recent child coming into the world. In the West, we have a different way and a different approach often than that are here in the Philippines. For instance, in the Philippines, I've already noticed before, but more so just recently, the last few days, is how you can have a private room in a district hospital, but you still have to ensure that you have sheets, pillows, and all the other necessary things that are required to make your stay in comfort. Nothing is provided really beyond the essential things required for the birth of a child. Also, the other thing is that here in the Philippines, you you get the patient comes into the hospital to be treated or to have a procedure, have a baby maybe, and the mother or the father or the sisters or the brothers take their turn in keeping the patient not only company-wise, but doing the running around and helping out while in the room. Now, normally speaking, it would be the nursing staff that you would press a button and do. And of course, if you're in a city hospital, one of the bigger ones, what I will call a five-star hotel treatment, that applies there too. But also that the Philippines is accustomed to having family members spend the night alongside the patient in the same room, which doesn't happen in the West. But one of the things that I'm reminded of is that the recent arrival of my stepdaughter's little daughter, and I will call her my stepdaughter, I don't care what other people might perceive as the legal aspect of it. I've been her stepfather for 10 years, so I think I have a right to call her that. We're not talking any other way than just common sense. I can't just describe her as like what some people might want me to, my ex-girlfriend's daughter. Yes, she gave birth yesterday to a beautiful little girl, and her sister's been doing a wonderful job being I suppose, the offsider, the sidekick for her older sister. And it's lovely to watch what comes natural, but also to watch the approach that they have towards children here in the Philippines. When you haven't had children before, you rely upon your parents to guide you, to give you the advice. And of course, if your parent is not, I don't know, as attentive as you might have imagined, it's up to somebody to point out things like when the baby's been fed, that you have to burp it. You have to put her over your shoulder or him over your shoulder and just gently tap or maybe move your hand around on the back of her, on the back, like this, till you get to either hear or you can feel that. Because for a little baby, of course, 1 day old, you can't say, "Hey, Mum, I need to be burped. I've got air in my tummy." How did I get air? Well, because I'm sucking, and it falls upon somebody in the family, somebody, and it's fallen upon me in one way, and I'm happy to do it. But it's interesting that for the first time I get so much attention from both the girls listening to what I say, having been a father or being a father of 5 lovely human beings. Many, many years ago now. My eldest is 56 and my youngest is 35. And you never forget these things that come natural. Things like telling your stepdaughter, the new auntie of the little baby, that the child needs to feel, don't be scared, you're not going to hurt her by holding her close to you, by holding her tight. No, I don't mean squeezing the air out of her lungs, but just holding her firmly, speaking to her in a normal voice, not tippy-toeing around as if you obviously don't shout, but you talk in a normal voice and you say, oh, there's a good little girl. And they start to recognize the tones in your voice. Because as I point out, little girl is just starting to understand what sound is. And they're starting to register. Their brain is starting to tell the difference between the different people in the room. And these will become the people that she will grow up knowing the sounds of till she's able to communicate herself. And it's almost a delight to pass on that knowledge and see it being received so openly and so attentively. And it brings me to the idea that many of the channels talk about having a young wife, and these guys are old. But in a selfish way, and I say that in a kind way, what's wrong with experiencing for yourself the chances of having a child, bringing it up, sharing in every moment of their lives? Maybe some of you have had children yourself and maybe missed out on a lot of the things that you now have an opportunity, because you're retired, to share in and maybe have a better understanding when you're talking to your own children about how you felt the joy of holding, comforting, telling stories to your younger children and having them look up and listen to your every word. These things are treasures that you have a very short period of time in one's life to enjoy. And I think that whilst others sit there and condemn older guys wanting to have a child, I don't think we really should be so harsh. Yes, the child might spend 10 or 15 years with the father only to have him pass away in the end. But hopefully the efforts that you pass on in that 15 years maybe will carry forward in the minds of that child later on, about how they remember how their father used to sit for hours talking to them, telling them stories about his life, how his other brothers and sisters, half brothers, half sisters, were able to deal with different things. It all helps to pass on the knowledge of the elderly, as we're not that past it that we can't share in the joy and the different stages of a child's life. And I do find it rather offensive when people talk about, I wouldn't bring up somebody else's sprog. Why should I pay for her or his education? Why not? You accepted her mother. You lived in a home with her and her children, why wouldn't you take on the role of being the father figure, at least in the home? And part of being that is to take on the responsibility. It's not something that's going to break the bank. It's about showing another human being a little bit of compassion and empathy. And it's all very well to say, well, that's not my job, and I didn't come to retire and have to bring up somebody else's kid. Well, that's a sad way to look at life, I think. If you can meet a little kid in the street and pass on a story, a joke, and they enjoy listening to you and they come up to you every day, maybe for another story, what's wrong with that? So what's the difference between seeing that joy and spending the time to put a puzzle together, maybe to help them with their maths, maybe showing them how to draw pictures? All these things add to the connection that you have with, yes, somebody else's child, but why not give that child the benefit of your own knowledge? If you were a teacher, would you discriminate against all those in the class because they're not your children? You do that because that's your vocation and you're there to teach them all. And I think that we need to be less judgmental on those that do come here and choose to live, set up home, set up a life with somebody else's children. Because how many people back home in the West have relationships where there are children from a previous marriage? You may have your own, and they may intermingle, what they call a mixed family, or there's another name for it. But the point is, it's like the Partridge Family. They're all treated equally. Children are children. They don't differentiate. Sure, when they're angry and they're annoyed at you, you're not my dad, you're not my father. These things hurt. But the other things outnumber the disappointment when you hear those things. You know, in 10 years, I've been disappointed occasionally. Comments that hurt, dig into you. But in the end, all the good things, the moments of joy, the heartfelt text messages saying that they see you as their father, their real father, that means a lot to me. And I think it should to you too, because we don't get too many chances at life. And that's my thought for this evening. I hope it's not received in a negative way, but just give it a bit of thought. Be less judgmental. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and come on, subscribe. We're doing really well. Get those watch hours up and we'll be up and running soon. We'll have to do a live maybe this week. And remember, I'm still planning on going to Manila. Now that the baby has been born, the pressure will be less upon myself to not be here to care for an expectant mother, now actually a mother. So we'll leave her to traverse that everyday learning process. It will be a learning process. So bye now.